Welcome to today's discussion on 3 ways location intelligence accelerates revenue growth for network owners and network operators. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today. My name is Greg Whalen. I'm the principal of Graywell Advisors, experts in open and neutral broadband, and I'll be moderating our discussion today. The driver for this session is we've been seeing an increase in the desire for network owners to become more data-driven in their decision-making process. However, there's been a significant gap in their ability to do so, since critical data is either not available or difficult to obtain. Today we're going to discuss location intelligence as a solution and specifically explore FiberLight's success in the use of the technology. Okay. Joining me today are Mark Diamond, Chief Revenue Officer of FiberLight, and Ben Edmond, CEO and founder of Connected2Fiber. They both have significant industry experience and operator roles, and we're excited to hear from both of them today. Ben is going to provide an overview of current market dynamics in the connectivity industry and discuss what location intelligence is and how it can solve some of the insight-related problems that plague connectivity companies. From there, Mark is going to take us on a deep dive and show us how FiberLight uses location intelligence supplied by Connected2Fiber to significantly improve its revenue growth in key areas. From a key learning perspective, you'll come out of this webinar with an understanding as to what location intelligence is and how it can be used to accelerate revenue growth through more effective market participation, account targeting, and deal pricing. More importantly, you'll see how FiberLight, a company with over 14,000 fiber miles, connecting over 900 buildings in over 400 cities, uses data-driven location intelligence to increase sales velocity, to create targeted go-to-market strategies for their sales team, and to develop a trusted partner ecosystem. Before we dive into FiberLight's story, let's have Ben provide an overview of the market realities that are driving network owners like FiberLight to use location intelligence to move their businesses forward. All yours, Ben.
Well, thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in today's webinar. And we're going to talk about a number of different key topics. But first, I just want to shine a light on the current go-to-market process in the telecommunications market. And it's fundamentally broken in a number of different ways. One, the market has very poor visibility. Where the specific opportunities are, how to execute on them with the amount of capital and resources available in the sales and marketing stack. There's a lot of inefficiencies that we see throughout the marketplace with manual efforts for cultivating leads, for identifying prospects, for figuring out the solution sets when they are found. Many sales and marketing tasks rely on these human interactions that make it a real challenge to scale and be effective in today's I want it now market. And the reality is that there is an ecosystem. The amount of capital needed for any one company to build everywhere is really, not in the game plan. It requires an ecosystem to execute, and that trust-based ecosystem just has never been built up, from the ground truth of where physical assets are, how they interconnect, and how you can execute with your partners in an automated and intelligent way. And that needs to change to keep up with the times of the move to the cloud, the SD-WAN ecosystem that is reality in enterprise networks today. We need those challenging or those pushes in the marketplace to coincide with the physical reality that you need fiber connections into the locations to enable them. One of the key challenges out there is, the enterprise sales teams not meeting the level of productivity that they need to keep up with the organic growth objectives that network operators need. And there's a couple of root causes that we've identified through, working in the market, through supplying tools and solutions into the market. One is there's a really challenge in the visibility in the total addressable market. It's not enough to understand just where you're physically connected and you can serve, directly with the fiber that you've already built. But what about the proximity and understanding, how that proximity has demand, where the other opportunities are from a branch office or data center perspective to get your arms as an enterprise sales team around the total addressable market and prioritize that total addressable market with your best next action. From a targeting perspective, a lot of times what the market is seeing is taking demand data, the biggest revenue, the biggest employee count, the biggest square footage, and stack ranking it, and missing key elements in how to effectively target in the world of connectivity. In the best practices we've really seen companies take a layered approach of three different items in targeting. One, they use their ability to serve. Two, they use that demand potential, not just from an individual location, but across the account. And three, they look at the competitive dynamics that are reality in almost every action. And chasing the wrong opportunities really negatively impacts your win rate and your ability to execute on your growth objectives. And last but not least, a significant factor in the enterprise sales productivity is poor pricing decisions. The constant chasing of the lower rate without the competitive context and the overall landscape. And data drives those decisions in a better way. Pricing is a significant enabler of growth, both in terms of win rate improvement and margin improvement, and are key levers in the equation of getting ahead of the enterprise sales opportunity. On the other side of the go-to-market stack is the wholesale sales effort, and frankly, the last 20 years have not looked a lot different. Spreadsheets dominate how businesses share between each other. No system of record of truth around the data, the structure, different companies needing it different ways, sending that out in KMZ or Excel spreadsheets on a manual basis when the engineering team or when the sales operations team can get new extracts of the limited data that they do have is time consuming, it's frustrating, and it's an activity that frankly takes the sales team away from actually negotiating new interconnects, actually introducing new products, actually introducing ways to maximize the trust and the relationship in these large mega accounts in the wholesale side of the equation. And the formatting is a key differentiator that limits the ability to execute in a lot of cases. Companies like a CenturyLink or an AT&T need the data structured the way they need it. They buy a lot, they demand a lot for a lot of good reasons. And if you don't enable them with the right data in the right way, you'll limit your ability to execute in those relationships. There's a couple macro trends out there that stand out to me, just observing the marketplace, that really matter in this equation of looking at location intelligence and how it applies to improving the go-to-market efforts. Change brings opportunity, and two big changes that are occurring right now are the build out of 5G infrastructure to support the next generation of wireless services. That is coming. That is happening now, and we'll continue to see massive investment over the next 3 to 5 years. And coupled along with that is this push to the edge, this reshaping of the application and content stack to enable the reality that everyone wants more and everyone wants it faster. I'm going to talk about both of those key drivers in the context of the go-to-market processes for network operators and how to take advantage of those pushes when it comes to location intelligence. When we step back and look at 5G in particular, it's going to put a lot of different pressure on existing network operators and the challengers out there, because new infrastructure is going to be needed. There is not the critical mass of fiber that is necessary to deliver the end result of 5G. So new infrastructure is going to be built when you're talking about fiber dedicated to small cell at individual poles, at traffic lights, on top of buildings. That new infrastructure being deployed, one is a massive amount of capital injected into our ecosystem, estimated over $250 billion over the next 5 years, but it's going to create change and opportunity. That changes and opportunity really is aligned with how do you deploy these antennas to serve the needs of the 5G use cases, whether it's the individual consumer, whether it's the business application, whether it's the connected car. There's different use cases, and you have to be aligned to where those use cases are going to be deployed and the reality that it's only wireless for a short distance. Fiber infrastructure is going to be deployed, and typically it's going to be new fiber infrastructure deployed. And at the end of the day, this is a one-time, 3 to 5 year shot. There is not a ongoing 20-year 5G build out that's going to be continuous at the same level. The opportunities now, the alignment is now, and if you miss your opportunity to participate in that capital deployment, you're missing a big opportunity. Going along the same lines, there's this push to the edge, and it's really driven by the end user's need for both in a consumer basis and a business basis. They need the performance of their applications driving their productivity and entertainment needs the way they want it. People are downloading movies in a fraction of a second on Netflix. Business applications are consuming more and more of the resources from a cloud perspective. And in order to accommodate that, we can't have data centers at the center of the country or at the edge of the country only. They got to be deployed closer to the user. So identifying new installations, where these edge locations are, how they intersect with the ecosystem that enables them to function and operate. There's this collision between the eyeballs on the wireless handset, the eyeballs on the cable co, and the reality that the people consuming both of them matter, and they're not in the data center. So how do you push closer to where they are? Pick the optimal sites, make it data driven and at scale. And look at the competitive intelligence that's going to differentiate your ability to serve that ecosystem and serve it effectively, as this push to the edge happens. And once again, it's a macro trend that's going on now that you either participate in or you don't. And we would strongly argue that participation is going to lead to better capital deployment, more growth, and more opportunity for the team. Location intelligence is really a critical aspect and a centerpiece into any network operator strategy for the next generation go-to-market stack. And when we step back and look at what it influences, it's really a key part of how do I participate in my total addressable market? Not just to identify it, but to actually drive the participation so you're optimally putting yourself in a position to win wherever that decision's happening for the next connectivity. How do you maximize that participation through partnerships, extending your reach, building your total addressable market, and satisfying the need, especially in the enterprise transformation going to SD-WAN networks? How do you solve those equations and really maximize your win rate? Ideally selecting one of the 2,319 physical network operators that exist in the market today to position yourself to success. And when you look at location intelligence, it's really the centerpiece at effective targeting. How do you use that location intelligence and layer on demand, layer on the competitive intelligence, layer on your ability to serve in a very targeted way to maximize your success at winning? Because ultimately you can't get time back. You need to allocate your sales and marketing team to the best decision each and every day in a competitive environment. And when you've targeted, when you're participating optimally, the last lever and a really important lever is how do you price to win? And winning is not just the win rates, it's maximizing your margin on every single deal, using that competitive intelligence, using the understanding of the market to leverage your ability to win more deals and win at a higher margin. All of it is centered around how do I bring location intelligence into the DNA of my go-to-market process. We at Connected2Fiber are on a mission to build the authoritative source of comprehensive location intelligence for the connectivity industry. We bring a combination of data and an app stack that is very visual in nature for the seller today, and a set of services to really help network operators optimize their go-to-market processes by helping influence participation, targeting, and pricing. It is a dimensional, shareable location insight platform built specifically for our world. It contains the data and the processes to help drive wholesale, to help drive a channel engagement strategy, and help optimize an enterprise sales strategy that's focused on targeting the right wins at the right time. We're proud to offer what we have. We've been a high growth business over the last 3 years, raising almost $10 million and putting that to work for our customers to build out this next generation platform. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Greg.
Yep. Thanks, Ben. Nice overview of the market dynamics. Before we turn on to FiberLight and hear from Mark, let's ask a few quick questions to you. First question I have is, what type of companies can benefit from location intelligence the most?
That's a great question. When I think about who can benefit the most, I really think about the network operators that physically own plant out there that have allocated this capital to build the right fiber infrastructure the market needs. Maximizing that fiber investment is, really maximized when you leverage location intelligence to the fullest and drive participation. On the flip side, we've seen a lot of value for those who need to leverage those physical networks and build solutions for a multi-location network strategy. The managed service providers of the world, the aggregators of the world, really need that location intelligence, but put the pieces together. We think there's a great value and a great fit across both of those segments.
Good. One more before we go on. So what would be the key questions you would ask yourself to determine if you could benefit from location intelligence?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think I would ask a couple of key questions. One centered around, do I believe I'm fully participating in my market today? If you believe you are, then you probably don't have a lot of value with location intelligence. But if you believe that there's opportunities that are not coming to your platform, your network capability, then location intelligence can probably drive improvement in participation. And then the other question I would focus on is, do I believe my sales and marketing efforts are aligned to maximum productivity? Or are there gaps? Are they spending too much time on research? Are they spending time on the wrong opportunities? Is my productivity too low? If I answer yes, my sales team is optimized and they're hitting on all cylinders, probably not an opportunity to leverage location intelligence. But if you see gaps, if you answer the question, yeah, I think there's a challenge in how we're allocating our sales and marketing spend and not maximizing our benefit, location intelligence really can amplify the results of an operator.
All right, great. Good answers. All right, so now we're going to hear from Mark Diamond, the Chief Revenue Officer of FiberLight, who's going to show us how they use location intelligence to accelerate revenue growth. Mark, take it away.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that introduction. Yeah, I just wanted to talk briefly and give you a quick overview of FiberLight so we had a basis for some of the other things we're going to discuss. FiberLight's a fiber infrastructure company, and we've been building network infrastructure for about 20 years. We've been recently focused on some of the things that Ben had mentioned earlier, which is enabling kind of digital transformation, where I think about going to the cloud migration, data center migration, the implications of things like 5G and other security implications into the network. From a physical standpoint, most of the fiber we built here recently in the last 4 years, about 10,000 route miles, new diverse fiber. And as mentioned earlier, we can reach within our footprint over 360,000 structures of today. We've been pre-qualifying 78,000 of those with some predetermined price that we can take to our customers. And lastly, just, the business is kind of broken into two different areas. One is kind of our roots, which is our traditional dark fiber infrastructure, and then more recently, our high capacity lit transport last mile services that today interconnect everything from commercial infrastructures, data centers, wireless towers or other wireless locations, key government and educational institutions. So that's a quick overview of us as a network operator. As we kind of came in here and in the last year or so and looked at kind of where we were and evaluated where we sat, I think there was definitely a need to kind of change our status quo, because we really struggled with some of the velocity and the implications of having velocity in our process to how we went to market were stifled a little bit. And so I tell a story of kind of the day of a life of a FiberLight sales rep back in those days. And, unlike any other sales organization, they kind of go through a standard sales process, which to me, there's four elements. You target, you qualify, you propose, and then you try to close an opportunity. And speaking specifically on the targeting side, this day in the life of a FiberLight sales rep was really kind of what I call a shotgun approach. It's they came in, hey, dude, are there any leads? Hey, I've used kind of some internal information I have about where I should go target in my territory, and they kind of went out there and went at it. And secondly, when they did find something and they tried to qualify it, there was a lot of different tools that they had to use to make sense of kind of the business opportunity that was in front of them, and that made it difficult on them. And then third, at the time, when they went to propose it, first they were challenged with some of the timeliness of getting a response back, but the response was mainly driven from a financial approach, which definitely had great merit. But other things were not considered that could be kind of longer term or involved in those decision process. And then finally, when they went to close it, there really wasn't much thought around what does that sale do to other organizations inside of the company? What are the downstream impacts to construction and engineering, and where they might have to go build fiber and deploy it? That really wasn't well contemplated in the decision because of the location, lacking some of the location level information on that deployment. Next, I think the next big challenge was for us that we faced was just the different amount of systems here, and we displayed some of these ones that we were using, 6 or 7 of these pretty frequently, in trying to go into different databases, look at different mapping, look at different data sources for who is in the building, and try to pull that together, created just a huge burden. I think the biggest burden obviously was on the sales process, where they just had to go back and forth between multiple systems, try to pull together the data from each of those systems to articulate their business case, and that was an issue. Next, I think just other internal organizations inside of the company face the same type of challenge, right? That they're different data sources. What does 3GIS say versus what's in CoStar, and how's that different from what we're seeing on the web or even some internal sources we have? And then I think last and third here is it was hard to kind of target where best to build. And again, back to that sale, was that sale the right sale, right? I don't think we often ask ourselves sometimes that, is that the right sale? And what I mean by that is, in some cases, we did a lot of one and done. So we took in a lead, or we found an opportunity and it was 2 miles over here off the network. Great, let's go build out there. And we didn't really contemplate, hey, who are the other customers in that building? Are there other structures or buildings that are around that particular building that we built to that maybe we could reach now? And who are the customers inside of there? And what's the competitive landscape out there? And even on the way out to building to that building, are there other things we could pass and be able to take advantage of as we went on down the line? So it's not just kind of a one and done, but more of a futuristic approach of where we kind of will be heading in the future to pick up additional business. So those were definitely some challenges from a location intelligence standpoint that we faced. I think for us, as we decided, hey, who are we going to pick for this location intelligence? It wasn't kind of a matter of whether we needed it. We knew we needed it, and now how do you go source that? First and foremost, I think is, we looked to find somebody that understood our business and came from the business and could aid in solving that problem, and not just, hey, we're solving the problem and here's the solution. Somebody that kind of lived and walked a day in the life of kind of where we were and really had some intimate experience with it. So that was key for us. Secondly, as I mentioned previously, there was obviously a need to consolidate into a single source of data for our assets, and that was just a must-have. The swivel chair stuff just wasn't working, so to have a single source for all that data was key. And then last, I think, for us, like most companies, there's a secret sauce and why we've been successful, and being able to capture that secret sauce and how it's captured and how we use it in the applications are key to our success. And being able to work with somebody like Connected2Fiber that kind of understands, hey, you guys aren't going to be just not needing the off-the-shelf, but some level of customization and flexibility, I think was paramount to our decision. And as a result, we selected Connected2Fiber, again, for all those reasons. I mean, for us, just being able to not have to go between multiple systems to assimilate location intelligence piece of information. And then I think also more importantly, how do you take the assets and understand them and understand how to price them? And to Ben's earlier point is, how do you maximize the margin that you get out of those assets? That was key. And then finally, understanding, in my earlier example, just, hey, what is the proximity of that opportunity that we were missing when we were taking that shotgun approach and going to market and just kind of following the opportunity, versus a more proactive understanding of, hey, there's all these buildings today, as mentioned earlier, 78,000 buildings that we can go into that are close, that don't distract our existing organization, are easier to build to the core network and put on the network, and rather than kind of building offshoot things. Great for strategic opportunities, but for that transactional business, this is a much better approach, and we're excited about having the opportunity to kind of work with Connected2Fiber. And then for us, I think, if we boil down the three main areas of impact that we saw here, obviously the sales velocity is a big one. And again, I don't want to just underscore, hey, it's long time, 45 days to make quotes, but also what was the impact or longer term view of the investment? So not only could we generate good short-term transactional, hey, here's a price, Mr. Customer, we're responding, but we also kind of understood, hey, if we're going to go build fiber there, who are we now going to be able to serve there? Who's close there? What's the competitive landscape? What type of margin we'll be able to pull out of this building? And so that definitely helped us from not only a standpoint of capturing that sale from today, but putting ourselves in a position to now capture future sales from that investment. Secondly, Obviously, the targeted strategy that we had in place from enterprise, again, back to that day in the life story that I told you, those are, that was a key pickup for us, because now, if you can think about it, a sales rep can wake up in the morning, they can go into their territory, they can look into a single source with Connected2Fiber, and they're able to say, okay, I'm going to go spend time in this part of town, and here's 4 buildings. These 3 of these buildings seem to be underserved with fiber. The 4th building doesn't even have any fiber, and all of these buildings have high count tenants inside of them, and we understand there's a pretty significant spend in terms of their data communication spend in those buildings. Is a far different approach on a daily day in day out metric versus kind of that shotgun approach that I alluded to earlier. So that's huge for us. And then lastly, Ben hit on this from the enablement of kind of a trusted partner ecosystem. We have 2 other groups, a channel group and a network solutions group. And those guys, like most groups out there, lived in spreadsheets and struggle to constantly update customers. And what I'd showcase there is not so much just the challenge of updating what's in the partner or the carrier system, but how that hurts kind of our investment. So if we could think about for a minute, we go out, we build a piece of fiber into 123 Main Street, and now we're challenged with, okay, I have to go update 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 different partners or carrier systems with 123 Main Street, because if I don't, they won't know that that's an on-net price. I won't be able to participate and compete for the demand in that building. And so now, by having a more real-time interface through an API, we can immediately even think about things like, hey, we're 2 weeks away from turning up this particular building with fiber. We now are going to change the pricing, and that's immediately reflected, and we get more at-bats and participation in those ecosystems to be able to see that demand go into those buildings. So that's really a massive pickup. And when you think about the cycles being compressed from potentially a quarter down to a day, you can think about how you can much more better monetize that situation by being able to update those systems in a more real-time manner. And last, I would just close with, when considering kind of location intelligence project, I think for me, 4 things. First is careful not to pick the company that maybe just has the off-the-shelf product. I think we talked about that a little bit before. For me, some level of customization or flexibility to kind of participate with the vendor on changing those small things that can make a big difference, and not just saying, hey, here's our off the shelf, good luck with it. I think that's important. From the next piece, the second one here, data to me is king in this whole thing, and the ability to kind of take it, consume it, leverage it in a single source, and then make key decisions, whether that's decisions from a marketing standpoint, sales standpoint, financial investment standpoint, construction engineering standpoint. Having that business intelligence is super important when you consider this. And then third, I would say don't get locked into somebody who might come to you and say, hey, in my case as a sales leader, hey, Mark, you have 50 salespeople, so we're going to sell you 50 licenses, and we're going to lock you into a 36-month commitment, and then we can see how it goes. I think being able to have a crawl, walk, run approach where you take a smaller subset and be able to evaluate kind of the results of that and then build on that is key as you kind of move forward to just measure the results of what you're trying to produce out of this intelligence. And then last, I would say that I don't think you don't have to wait till everything's perfect. And I'd make a reference to Colin Powell and his success strategies, who says, when you have 40 to 70% of the solution, it's go time. And I think working with Connected2Fiber, they offer the ability to just pick up a company at any point in their life cycle. And so you don't have to be worried about having everything perfectly baked. You can integrate with them at those different points, and then kind of evolve it to the next level over time. So for me, those are probably the four most important points when considering a location intelligence project. And with that, I'll turn it back to Greg.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate the overview of how you guys are using data-driven location intelligence to significantly grow your revenue streams. Before you go, let me ask you a few questions. Given your success thus far in implementing location intelligence, what are FiberLight's future plans for becoming even more data-driven?
Yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at right now. Probably the biggest area is we do have marketing data sources that probably in the past were not used to the most effective nature that they could be used in. And I think our ability to kind of marry location intelligence to that marketing data and drive a more specialized marketing campaign, whether it be email or whatever. Think about a situation like in the past, we would just send a general kind of 4-tiered campaign out that would hit our customer base and make requests. We can now study some of this location intelligence married with the marketing information. And if you can think about, if we were building fiber to go through a specific area, we could actually have a marketing campaign with this data, follow that fiber that's being built, and say, hey, there's 12 buildings along that next fiber piece we're building. Let's go and run marketing campaigns as we're building that fiber down the street, and hit each one of those buildings and have a very purposeful message around kind of knowing, hey, the tenants that are in there, the spend, the competitive landscape, again, all those things that we've been hitting and talking about here. I think that's big. And then, just being, I think, on that first sales call, now that you have this location intelligence, if you get an intent-based lead, or you get a web-based lead, or some customers hitting kind of on the reactive side, you now can a sales professional can now study location intelligence, look at that data, those subsets. Now when they go to that first sales call, be a whole lot more informed about the customer they're talking to and the situation they're walking into. And I think that's a key differentiator for us, and something we're going to focus on as we get more data driven over time.
Interesting. So one more question. What have you learned about implementing new technologies into your business operation that surprised you?
Yeah, I think it probably deals, probably the thing that surprised me the most is maybe the customer culture, or what I would say our company culture, and how that relates to a technology deployment, right? And so I think, it's something maybe I probably didn't think about that much, but it was surprising. And I think there's 3 types of those type of adopters, right? I call them adopters. There's the early adopter. So we roll out an application like this, and those early adopters, they'll jump right in. Hey, how do I get my access? How do I get trained? And I walk through an office and I see these guys up using this and whacking away at it, and they probably have figured out more ways to use it than anybody else. And so then hopefully from there, I mean, from a cultural standpoint, you can take some of the success stories and take them to the next group, which, by the way, those early adopters, I think that's a smaller group of your employee base. You then have a later adopter that is a bigger pool of people. But I think if you can use those success stories with the early adopters and be able to say, hey, look how we won this deal, look how we were able to engage this customer, look how we were able to compress the sales process or cycle, you start to win those guys over. And then you always have the last group, which I think, again, is a smaller group that's probably those users who will never adopt, right, or are resistant adopters. And I think those guys, over time, it's just that kind of works itself out in kind of the sales culture. But I think, yeah, the cultural adoption of kind of a new thing is probably the most surprising thing to us. But that's kind of how we've tried to work with it. So.
Interesting. All right, well, this has been a great session on data-driven location intelligence, both from the perspective of what it is and why the network owners and operators need it. We've also seen how a leading provider like FiberLight are at the cutting edge in their adoption of innovations to significantly accelerate their revenue growth. I'd like to thank Ben Edmond for giving us an overview of the importance of data-driven location intelligence, and Mark Diamond for showing us specifically how FiberLight uses location intelligence to increase sales velocity, create targeted go-to-market strategies for their sales teams, and to develop a trusted partner ecosystem. If you'd like more information on how to work with FiberLight or Connected2Fiber, you can visit them at the URLs that you see here. Thank you again for your time, and I hope you enjoyed our conversation.